The Geek Legion of Doom awaits you. Join us if you dare.
Ouija Hell House, directed by Calvin Murray McCarthy. Now, this isn't to be confused with the actual official Ouija series, nor is it to be confused with the Hell House LLC series of movies. Nothing to do with either of those franchises. Even though the Ouija is actually a trademarked brand, they don't seem to be that fussed about really pushing that kind of copyright anyway. So here we have it, a low budget movie. I have reviewed a few movies from Calvin Murray McCarthy before. This one is effectively a haunted house movie. We have a family of a single mother and her two kind of teenage daughters moving to their maternal home, which has been abandoned for a while, or not used for a while, shall we say. But the family find a Ouija board in this house and kind of start to mess around with it. Inevitably, this is the gateway that the other side wants to come over to ours, and our family are harassed by spirits and possibly even a demonic presence. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's talk about it. What do you think works in this movie's favour? This is a low budget movie, and it is going to not appeal to anyone who is not au fait with watching low budget fare. But that being said, I think if you are used to watching, straight to streaming movies or VOD or straight to DVD movies, there are some elements of this movie which are quite fun. It pretty much more or less all takes place in this one house, and they do a fair job here of giving you lots of different kind of spooky things and like jump scares or creatures that actually are appearing in this house. I mean, this is not a movie where it's kind of saving it all for the end. Once they kind of it gets started, there's a whole plethora of different sorts of spooky encounters, one might say. So, there's lots going on here, and I got to appreciate some of the presentation here based on it being such a low budget movie. So we have this kind of demon that kind of shows up, this, a horned devil basically. I thought the makeup looked bloody good. Impressive stuff when you consider the low budget. I thought it genuinely looked pretty good. And then we have kind of more of your typical kind of like ghost girls and kind of spider walkings and things like that. Again, if you look at it through the prism of it's a low budget B movie, there are sections in this movie when kind of the spooky stuff happens. I think you can kind of appreciate the kind of the fact that this was produced on clearly such a low budget. And like I said, I think I have to say the pacing is fair to this movie. It's not saving all of the kind of the good stuff up to the end. It is peppered through the movie. So every so often you'll kind of get a little, something that will happen. I think maybe the movie is trying to sort of emulate almost a Conjuring-esque kind of style feel to it, where we have a family moving to a house harassed by kind of spooky stuff, etc. I mean, that's pretty much it though. There isn't really anything other than that in the movie, I have to say, but nonetheless, it's fairly sort of consistent through the film. There's an attempt here to try and have this kind of family dynamic, somewhat of a dysfunctional family. You've got one kind of rebellious girl, the other one sort of quiet and introverted, and the mum really struggling to kind of cope with the kind of deal between these kind of two personalities. So there's an attempt here to have some kind of characterization between this kind of family. I think the opening in the movie is actually pretty strong. There's a sequence at the beginning of the movie where we see like a delivery guy. So it appears that there's spooky stuff even before the Ouija board comes involved, and he kind of goes into this house. There's a quite cleverly done, I don't want to spoil it for you, but there's quite a cleverly done sequence where he sort of goes into the house and sort of sees someone there and ultimately thinks this is the person whose delivery it's for, but it could be something else. I actually thought that was actually a very, very good sequence in the movie. So there are sequences, we've talked about that word, sequences in this movie that I think are pretty strong. So if you watch clips of this, I think, you know, again, with a low budget mindset when you're watching this, there's some fun to be had. However, it's the movie around it where I feel is the problem here. So let me go into a little bit more about why I say that. Number one, the acting isn't brilliant. It's a small cast, primarily focusing on these three women, three female characters. Yeah, the acting isn't great, I have to be honest with you. So the three of them are sort of struggle to kind of really have any dramatic pathos, shall we call it. And as such, it sort of seems like a kind of silly B-movie. And also, I would say, the way these characters are written. For example, one of the criticisms I have when watching horror movies is characters' lack of fear. When something, you know, a character sees something clearly supernatural happening, sometimes a lot of the time in movies, I feel that the depictions of fear are really lacking. This one takes it to a whole nother level. Characters here are so nonchalant when they see something clearly supernatural. It goes to the point of almost parody. It's such a shame because I do think this movie has some fairly decent put together sequences in regard to some of the scares. I think some of the editing could have been better because it seems to sort of like veer from one sort of spooky scene to like another scene and then doing it again, but there's not really any build up. So I do think there could have been a little bit more atmosphere building, and some of the kind of editing here seems a little abrasive. But yeah, the acting isn't brilliant. The kind of the characterization work here is pretty unbelievable, and I think the direction in regards to some of the, as I say, really not building any type of genuine kind of spooky atmosphere, and these kind of characters just sort of indifference when seemingly confronted with something clearly supernatural. And to go one step further than that, you know, we have this family kind of finding this Ouija board, and it's the mum who's like, yeah, let's play around with this, whilst the teenagers are like, whoa, maybe we shouldn't. And it's like, come, you know, surely that would be the mum that would be doing that. But anyway, and then, you know, that all seems like it's fair for a sort of maybe a good 2 acts of the movie, and then you'll have like a priest come in or something, but it doesn't really ever do anything with it. It's just kind of like, that's it pretty much. It doesn't really feel like there is much more to the story other than that. So it feels a pretty sort of short-sighted movie in many ways. So look, if you just want some interesting stuff happening on the screen every so often, kind of spooky stuff, and I do think it's well handled, there's some kind of spider walks and all the rest of it, you know, there's something to be had here. There's some enjoyment to be had. But unfortunately, it's just in a movie where I feel like the execution of the script, of the characters, of the story, just is lacking, unfortunately, and thus making it a below average movie without being a terrible film. So I'll give it a 4 out of 10. What were your thoughts? If you've seen it, please do let me know, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.
My name is Jimmy Smits, and you've got the shits.